JRPGs have endured a consistent slump since the introduction of the PS3 and subsequent PS4. Ultra-realistic, high-definition seriousness replaced the fantastical colour and imagination of the 90s, and shooting people with guns has become the mainstream pastime of average gamers. That decline drove the JRPG kings, Square Enix, to establish a subsidiary team, Tokyo RPG Factory, and task them with reigniting the classic JRPG genre. What they came up with is a shameless homage to some of the most iconic games of all time. I Am Setsuna. I Am Setsuna is, in many ways, everything we loved about those classic RPGs from the 90s. It takes the essence of games like Chrono Trigger and the pre-PS2 era Final Fantasy titles, and provides a wonderfully nostalgic yet entirely fresh experience. With a story that covers deep themes of sadness and sorrow, while still managing to be intensely charming, it's a game that you never really want to stop playing. Progress is pretty easy to come by, and while it's not exactly the most challenging game you'll ever play, it keeps you interested by drawing up a world that is full of intrigue and tension. You begin the game as a lone, masked mercenary, and as with the games I Am Setsuna has drawn inspiration from, you gradually meet a party of characters who all come together, build relationships and interact with each other, providing some really memorable moments throughout the game's story. As you travel and explore each of the locations within the world, meeting NPCs and talking with the people who live there, it becomes apparent that there is a whole history behind the timeline we follow in the game. History and legend are all intertwined as you and your characters work towards the end goal. This is where I Am Setsuna is undoubtedly at its strongest, and that is, in essence, what this game is all about. Technology has progressed massively since the days of RPGs in this style, and as such the nature of the environment has gotten a little bit outdated. But that's not to say the landscape is barren either. Each house is filled with utilities and objects you would expect to find in a house that's lived in, even if it does appear that every homeowner in the game shopped at the same department store. The linear dungeon design is also very reminiscent of 90s RPGs, and the bland world map could have easily been taken straight from Final Fantasy VII. But for me, this is by no means a bad thing, because everything you look at in this game is beautiful. Whether it's the character designs, which are just ever so slightly out of proportion, the landscapes and natural environment, or simply the tracks that are formed as you wade through 3 feet of snow in virtually every place you go to. The aesthetic and feel of this game is something which is sadly lacking from modern games, and probably what I miss most about those real classics. But perhaps more importantly than how good it looks, I Am Setsuna is fun. The battle system shamelessly takes the ATB active time battle system and implements some subtle changes in order to keep things fresh, if only as a token gesture. What you get is everything you remember from the early days, with something called momentum nailed on top. Characters gain levels and equip magical elements known as Spritnight to learn abilities. Spritnight are collected by selling items you pick up in battle to an NPC called the Magician's Consortium. Each Spritnight can be crafted once you have enough of each item. This is where I Am Setsuna starts to grow in length, as some items can only be found if you defeat a monster in a certain way, and as such it can take multiple attempts until you get what you actually need. The Spritnight you purchase can then be equipped to a talisman. Characters can equip one talisman each, and they all have their own unique strengths and capabilities. It takes a fair amount of fine tuning before you find a variation that works best for you, and experimenting with different Spritnight can eventually unlock some pretty devastating combo attacks. Combo attacks become a central part of encounters as you progress deeper into the game. Some characters, when equipped with certain Spritnight, can link up with each other to pull off powerful offensive attacks or boosted support actions. This is where ensuring you use every character throughout the game can really pay off, as everyone in your party can perform vital roles depending on the specific needs of a particular fight. Weapons can also be customised with the use of special items, although this is customisation in its most basic form. I Am Setsuna was released back in 2016, and it's hard to judge whether it really did enough to reignite JRPGs on modern consoles. On the plus side, we now have the opportunity to play a game of this style on PS4, and a spiritual successor, Lost Sphere, was also released on the back of I Am Setsuna's relative success. However, it never quite managed to reach the heights of Chrono Trigger or Final Fantasy VI. The storytelling always felt a little brief, and I always just wanted a little bit more. It's definitely a start though, and hopefully a strong enough foothold that Tokyo RPG Factory continue to build upon.